you, David, and good afternoon, everyone. This is an interesting session. It's called the post-lunch slump. I'm going to try to make sure you actually don't fall into that. And typically, you want people not to be on their phones. This session is going to be slightly different. I will actually ask you to use your phones a few times. But by the way of introduction, my name is Joanna Kostecka, and I lead Microsoft Global Supply Chain Planning for all of the cloud business. And I'm going to tell you a little bit more about that in just a moment. But we are the team that powers Microsoft Cloud, making sure that infrastructure, capacity, and innovation can scale with demand globally. It's not a small job that we do. You'll see it in just a moment. So, what we will cover today is a little bit about what actually is Microsoft Cloud supply chain. Is there a supply chain to a cloud? I actually get that question asked a lot, like, what supply chain? There is supply chain, quite a substantial one. We'll talk about why AI now, which is the question you heard through all the sessions and all the panels several times by now. So I think we're all like, yeah, we need to do AI, right? What is the urgency, but also what is the opportunity, right? Because we kind of sense it, there is a lot of opportunity, but like, what is it? We'll talk about our deployment of AI in practice for supply chain. How are we doing it? And we're also on a journey and we're learning. It's not like we have figured it all out and we're perfect and there's nothing better than this, right? We continue to learn, to iterate and grow on that journey. So I'm going to take you through that and how we're embracing that in practice. And then talk a little bit about the road ahead. And hopefully you'll find some interesting tips for how you can maybe do some of the same things if they apply to you. So, we're going to dive in. Take your phone out. Please scan the QR code and let's have some fun. And let's go and vote on what is the first thing that comes to your mind when you think cloud. Is that the big fluffy skies? Is it the foggy brain? Because the lunch was too big? Is it the cloud storage and tech? Or is it the head in the clouds if you're a dreamer? Let's see what we get. I'm going to give you all a minute to scan that, pick your choices, and see what we get. Raise your hand if you're done so that I have a feel for, okay, you guys are fast. All right, we did end up with cloud storage and tech, not the big fluffy skies, even though that did come up as well. Very cool. Okay, so moving on. What is Microsoft Cloud? Well, we actually support a wide range of offerings and applications for companies and for whole industries, and we help those companies and industries make the most of their data so that they can benefit from all the latest innovations that we drive as a company, including, obviously, Gen AI, right? Our cloud enables you to use tools like, the classic Microsoft suite, right? The Words, the Excels, all of the stuff. But it is also Teams and Copilot and Chat. And if you're in business development, right, and you want to create new applications, you will be using Microsoft Azure. You potentially will be using GitHub. Okay? So it gives you all those possibilities. And what powers that cloud is millions, literally millions of servers and GPUs that sit in more than 400 data centers across more than 70 regions all over the globe. And needless to say, we continue to bring more, right? Those are the huge CapEx investments that we continue to do, and you get to read and hear about them from our earnings calls and. So, what is that supply chain, and how is that different? Well, our end-to-end supply chain actually powers the world computer. And it isn't all that different from what you know in your supply chains. We also start with early design. We go through plan, that's where my team belongs. We go through source, we go through manufacturing, delivery, service, and we kind of span through product life cycle from that early design to actually decommissioning and recycling those servers at the end of their life. Full supply chain, because it is all powered by hardware. So where does my team come into play? What is it that we cover as part of planning? There is capacity planning, there is demand planning, supply planning, power planning. You read all about it in the newspapers. How much power do you need? Where is it going to go? Where do we deploy those servers? And. Network. You actually need a lot of network for those data centers and those servers to be connected. Millions of miles of different cable switches, and. Obviously, we manage inventory. We are in the business of making IBP work, or SNOP, or whatever is the term that you choose to use. And it's all underpinned by a lot of data science. And again, because we're running so fast, there is a huge portion of transformation that is going on in my business as well. So I'm sure you recognized the things that you do in your supply chains as well from what you have on your screen. Not that different for a lot of those spaces. Now, here is the interesting thing. Here is the growth of our revenue for cloud specifically over the last few years. What you see as that line is that revenue growth, and it's just 8 years. And you see how we went from less than 15 billion to now more than 170 just for cloud. And what those bars represent are the shipments of the servers, of the racks, that we as supply chain have to make sure that we're able to plan, build, deliver, and all that good stuff that you do in supply chain. The interesting thing is, I was at a different conference just 3 months ago, and I was using the same slide to explain we're dealing with this exponential growth, because as we all know, AI is exploding, right, in an unprecedented manner. The reason why I mentioned that, 3 months ago, that growth was 10x. Fast forward 11 months, and we're talking 11x. That's how fast it is actually changing for us. And guess what? It's only going to speed up. So sometimes it feels like well, so what do? This is where, by integrating AI in our planning, it actually helps us to be a little bit more orchestrated, a little bit more focused, a little bit more predictable and repeatable, and strike a little bit from everything I just said. Now, you have all heard in all the different panels and presentations already about all the different challenges that we face in supply chains. When you look at the screen, you probably recognize, again, your challenges, and you recognize yourself as a company in a lot of those things. If you look at the second box in the top row, it is the rise of Gen AI. So it is a challenge, but it is also an enormous opportunity, and that's what we're talking about here. And I think, again, it isn't a surprise if we say, I think we all in supply chain by now understand that it isn't a question of, is the next disruption going to happen? We know it's going to happen. The only question is how fast, how hard is it going to hit us? Can we predict it? How fast can we respond to it? Are we ready? Are we building those supply chain muscles to really become super agile in our responses? So, get your phones ready. You're going to get engaged again. And let's look at which challenge are you facing that keeps you up at night? Again, we're talking supply chain challenges. If you're worried about something else, it's not going to be on the slide. And if you're all done, could you do me a favor and raise your hand again so we know we can move on? Right, almost there. A few more seconds. Okay, let's see. So it seems like geopolitical, whoops, it's moving. Still moving on us. See, that's the volatility that we've been just discussing. Live and well. But I think geopolitical and geoeconomic instability is winning, followed closely by a rise of Gen AI, and then we've got economic volatility and inflation. All right, interesting results. So I already told you about our exponential growth, right? Of course, we, as Microsoft, face all those challenges that you have just seen. We're not unique and different in that regard, right? We have to solve for all of those things. But if you marry that with that unprecedented growth that we're experiencing, that means that all those things just happen so much faster for us, and we have to scale so much faster. And when you think about that scaling, there are additional things that you have to solve for, because things just got to such a cosmic pace. You have to solve for seamless end-to-end integration across a really, really large company, because it's a classic of it takes a village to make it all be orchestrated and delivered for when it needs to be delivered, right? And there are some hard choices sometimes to make. That cross-org alignments, when there is many orgs outside of supply chain, like within supply chain, you have a few orgs, right, to worry about. But there is several orgs outside of supply chain that you have to get aligned at a really fast pace and get your priorities in order. So you have to have strong governance as well and not kill people in continuous meetings. Because if you're only sitting in meetings, when are you actually going to allow your people to do the actual work? So, speed of light decision making. How do you do that and not drown in data and data and data, but instead actually have insights from data? Because, oh boy, we all have data, right? I am yet to see one company that will say, I don't have data. We all have data. It's just, what do you do with this data and how much insights are you going to be able to get from that data? So the thing that I continue telling my team, right, like speed is this differentiator. And again, because things are happening so fast for us, I kind of use this comparison to Alice in Wonderland, right? Where if you just want to stay in the same place, what do you have to do? You have to run really, really fast just to stay where you are. But if you want to get ahead, oh boy, you have to run faster, right? So success is a moving target. Keep moving. It's not going to slow down, guys. I keep joking that today is the slowest day you're going to experience. The next day is going to be faster. So get used to it. So this one got me absolutely fascinated. This is a quote from PwC. And they said, by 2030, AI will contribute 15.7 trillion to the global economy. I'll let that sink in. 15.7 trillion. And 2030 is just about 4.5 years away from now. Think about where we were 4.5 years ago. Not so long ago, is it? The next 4.5 years are not so long ahead of us either. It's going to happen really, really fast. So that tells you that AI is no longer optional, right? The pace of business, the complexity of global supply chains, the scale of infrastructure demand, you need to run faster and you need to have better insights and you need to be able to make better, more precise decisions, a lot of times ahead of times. So yes, Gen AI is a challenge. A lot of you voted that, right? I would vote that myself probably as well. But it is an amazing opportunity if you harness that power well. And it allows you to go from reactive to proactive. So let's do it again. Let's check how much do you and your team currently utilize AI for work. Is it your friend? Is it your enemy? Okay, we're still moving. Almost there. Okay, I think we settled. I think we're somewhere between occasionally and a portion of you frequently. So we're getting there. Okay. So for us, we had to write a new playbook for how do we scale AI, right? How do you embrace culture and capability? Because it isn't so easy, right? It hasn't been done before. And I guess it isn't all that surprising when you see the framework around people, process, and technology. It's been used before. And let me tell you, it kind of works within that framework. It just depends what is it that you put into that framework. So let's start with people. So what we did is, you don't want to feed AI to people and say, here is your AI tool, you shall be happy, and you shall use that, and it shall be your friend. Because it's very unlikely that it's going to work, right? Because there is a lot of people that are actually afraid of AI. They are afraid it's going to take their jobs, it's going to do this or that to them, right? Like, people deal with that anxiety. So we knew that if we were to succeed with AI, we actually had to start with our people. And we focused on building a culture that actually embraces AI, is not afraid of AI, and makes that agentic culture part of their day-to-day. It's what you do every day. It's your AI companion, for that matter. And shifting that fear of replacement to AI as your co-pilot. Product placement right there. Just saying. And yes, AI will make your workflow different, but it will help you. It will make you more efficient, and it will allow you to focus on what really matters. So what we did is, in supply chain, our engineering teams, you call them IT in some other companies, they actually created extensive AI trainings, extensive knowledge paths, where we took all the teams in supply chain, every single team member, through AI training paths to make them comfortable, to make them see that this isn't the enemy, this is nice, I can embrace it, even if I have been in the business for 30 years or longer. Trust me, we have people like that. You can do it. It is easy, and it is relevant for every single role in supply chain. And to make it fun, we actually had competitions between the teams on which team actually completes the full training faster. Because people love fun, right? So we encouraged that type of approach. And as leaders, we actually sat through those trainings with our teams, because you need to walk the talk, right? Not just subject them to it and say, you shall learn, but we don't have to. No, we have to as well, and we have to be at the forefront of it. Then we also said, every team, to the lowest denominator of the team, shall have their AI champion, so that they can speak for themselves and they can define their fate on what is it that they need from AI specifically. Now, back to those knowledge paths, we actually had fun because we did this. Oops, go back. Go back. Why are you not playing with me? In April, we had what was called Microsoft AI Skill Fest, and we broke the Guinness World Record for the highest amount of people taking AI training at one and the same time. So we're now officially in the Guinness World, record. So that made people very, very happy. Okay, let's look at processes. You cannot put AI on a really nasty process and expect magic. It may seem like magic, right? Sometimes you think it is magic, but you actually have to do some work, right? And our philosophy and approach to it was, well, you have to lean out your process first. And when you think about it, what we discovered, and I know from my career in several different companies before Microsoft, I know this to be true, and it may be true in your case as well. Processes are set up, business gets more complex, so different process steps are being added to those processes. You add on, you add on, you add on. It gets more and more complex. It is very rare that companies and teams go back and lean out as part of their regular exercise, right? But it becomes really critical if you want to deploy AI that you go and delete what somebody called, and I really love that expression, what they called soy. Stuff of yesterday, no longer useful today. Clean it all out. And as you clean up your processes, focus on the most impactful ones, the ones that you actually want to do AI on. Because if you clean up your process, you're also going to clean up the data pathways for it, and that means that your AI agent is going to be so much more valuable. Versus you look at the outcome and you're going to say, okay, this is just a bunch of something I can't relate to. So that is what we did for processes, and we continue to do so. We're on a journey, right? Finally, technology, right? You have done your piece on the people, and we continue to do so. You're cleaning up your processes. You're focusing on the ones that are most valuable. Now it's the technology part. Well, how do you do it? How do you boil the ocean? Was the question that we were asking ourselves. And we concluded this cannot be something similar to deploying a supply chain solution like you go and do, I don't know, Logility, SAP, you name whatever provider you want to, which becomes an extensive journey that takes quite a lot of time for a lot of people. Agentic cannot work like that. It has to follow different rules. And if it has to follow different rules, it has to be done differently. So we came up with an idea of AI squads. Well, what does that mean? So I already told you we empowered people, we trained them. So then the AI squad has people that already understand how AI works. They worked on their processes. They know where is it that they have problems that they want solving. So they submit their use case for an agentic solution, and then there is an intake process, and a squad is formed, right? So we're going to talk about that a little bit more. That is a collaborative design for user experience, because who sits on the squad is the business user, so the person who actually goes through the pain that they want to solve. There is the software engineer who knows how to create an agent, and then there may be a data scientist, there may be a product manager, depending on what the AI agent is trying to solve. But literally, those are 3 to 4 people teams, tiny. And they go and work on an agent. Now, how do we prioritize agents? The needs, at least for us, are massive. So what I do with my leadership team every quarter, when we go into our quarterly business review, which is like a 1 week, well, 3.5 days maybe, session with my leadership team, we actually review the agentic use cases that our teams came up with. And we select the 10 most impactful use cases that hopefully they improve the user experience because they reduce the pain that the users have to go through. They give them back the time to actually focus on something more meaningful. They deliver business value. They solve customer problem. It can be either one of the three, can be all the three, or any combination that you want. And with my LT, we look at them and we pick the 10. And every quarter, we go through that list of prioritized 10. The list gets submitted to our engineering IT partners to actually go and unleash the squads. And there is value creation and delivery from that. So what that allows us to do is to go from something that was firefighting to something that is more like orchestration, right? You are able to be a lot more proactive about what it is that you're going to do and why, and what are the use cases you're focusing on first. So when you think about it, AI is really transforming how we deliver the tools for supply chain. And there is 2 use cases. One of them is your personal productivity tools, right? And again, I'm going to bring up Copilot, right? What this thing can do, how it can summarize your emails, summarize your meetings, help you draft emails. Your personal productivity in a workplace is absolutely immense, right? That comes from that. But that isn't even the topic for what we're discussing here today. When you look at the enterprise systems, the supply chain technology, again, what we typically see when we want a supply chain solution for something in a more traditional manner is you write a business requirement document, you engage with your product management, your IT organization, it will take its cycles, and then from the moment you started to the moment you actually deployed something and you're seeing a value, it can easily take 1 year plus. When we unleash the AI squads, it takes us somewhere from 2 to 6 weeks, because those use cases are actually unpacked, split into a number of smaller agents, and there is value delivery on the way. So you take a piece of the value delivery and say, this is going to be a small agent. We kind of call it t-shirt sizing. This is an S, right, like on your t-shirt. It's going to take between 1 week to 2 weeks. That part of the value is actually a lot of work. It's an XXL. That one will take 6 weeks. But by doing that, you know what you're going to get and what value drop you're going to get within weeks. Makes a whole world of difference between this and waiting, okay, we made our requirements, now let's marinate for a year and something is going to come. Completely different paradigm. So how are we actually able to deliver an AI agent within 6 weeks? And again, it can be shorter depending on how big that agent is. We have developed an in-house data platform, an agentic AI platform that we use for supply chain. And basically, that thing automates the intake process so people can log in their use cases right there. Yes, we go through the prioritization process that I described to you, but it can be logged right there. So we can monitor all the use cases that anybody in supply chain actually has. It creates a front where there will be agents behind the scenes. It's like a library, but you don't have to go into the library as a user and try to look for your book. What is that agent that I had developed that I asked for? What is that thing hiding? None of that. You just have one central interface, like your Copilot, and that top agent will connect to any of the agents that have been developed to give you that information of that capability that you asked for. And as we continue to deploy more and more agents, we create that snowball effect because they are all connected. They are all creating bigger and bigger ecosystem that is not siloed. So you forgo the problem of planning sits on their solutions. Here is manufacturing that is doing something in their silos. Nobody knows what happens between one and the other. None of that happens anymore because it's all connected real time, and it continues to learn. The other thing is we manage the agent lifecycle, right? So from cradle to grave. There is development, right? There's inception, there is development, and then we make those agents better as well. They can be tweaked. Breaking into smaller chunks, I already talked about it. So we submit the use case, and you dive into, okay, it's going to be this many agents of that specific size. And success factors, process immersion, those AI squads, where we take that software engineers who knows how to AI, they actually have to sit through with the business user through actual real-life scenarios through the workday of that planner, of that manufacturing person, and see for themselves what this is like. And then an agent is developed. So it's a real-life experience that happens. So let me show you a few agents that we have deployed recently, specifically within planning. I mentioned power, right? Power is a big thing for us, and you have to know, like, where can I actually put those servers? Is that data center, do I have enough spaces that are contiguous? Can I put those racks in there? Is the power right for the servers that I need to deploy? And then think about it at scale across 400 data centers. In the past, our planners had to actually pick up the phone or send an email. Hassle, absolute hassle. Right now, it's a few keystrokes, and you know it all. Plan-on-plan analysis. Anybody who wants to know what changed in the forecast? Why is it different? What made it go up? What made it go down, right? Takes planners a lot of manual time to come up with those responses. Well, not anymore. Forecast explicability, another one. Okay, great, now I know what changed. Why? What drove that change? It will tell us because customer ABC had this or that change in this and that region. We had a demand surge because of this or that, or whatever else happened. That last one is Intelligent Deal Recommender, and it's actually a quick demo of what happens when you get a big deal and you don't know whether you should add it to your plan or not. No longer in doubt and with better results. We actually love this one. So very briefly, because we're out of time, the road ahead, the new rules of the game, because the game has changed. What it is for us, our playbook and the new rules of the game, they may be applicable to you. Make AI part of your culture. Humans and AI agents, this is the reality of new teammates. We have to embrace it. Maybe you do too. Tiny teams, big impact. And for us, the future isn't just AI-powered, it is AI-partnered. And if you ask yourself, where do I start? What use cases do I start with? Ask your team, what would we stop doing if an agent could do it well? It's a good place to start. And I'm going to leave you with that thought and say thank you. Nobody fell asleep despite the lunch. I appreciate that. Thank you so much for your attention.